Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prizepicks and the Gametime app.
Welcome into Poke the Bear episode 313, presented by Prizepicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5, and are presented by Gametime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. I assume you've recovered from your, well, maybe not recovered, but the St. Patrick's Day parade.
We won't go on
anger.
We won't go on a St. Patty's Day. Yeah, I don't think we're going on a rant today. That was my one little outburst I had. My little ad event a little bit. I think I'm entitled to that.
You are.
But no, I'm ready to talk more about hockey with you now. There's no piss, there's no poop anywhere over my abode. No one has desecrated my living space or anything like that. So we're in the clear, Evan. We're fine.
That's fair. I like that. We can live with that. You know, sometimes you need to vent. Sometimes you need to get out let off a little steam, a little anger. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I will say though, Connor, you know what documentary my girlfriend and I started last night?
What's that, Evan?
The Karen Reed documentaries, which I didn't follow that at all when it was happening because I got in late. So I'm like, I'm not going to try to catch up. I'm not going to do that. So I was like, you know what? Someone is definitely producing a documentary on this. Has to Netflix, Max, Hulu. Someone's got to be. And I'll watch it then. And we're in the middle of it. But we're not turning this into that. We're not discussing that too deep on this show.
Evan, we got a lot of time this offseason. So in August, we might be going through like our favorite documentaries. Like we will. We got quite the runway to talk hockey. And again, I think it's going to be a busy offseason for the Bruins. There's no doubting that. But we might run into some stretches.
It will be busy, but during the playoffs, we're going to need things to talk about. Maybe we do.
That is true.
Dive into theories of unsolved mysteries and things like that. And we go down the rabbit hole. I remember there was one at UMass that was really big. I think her name was Maura Murray, and it was a woman who disappeared. I think it was like 2004 maybe. And they still haven't figured out what happened. And there's Reddit threads, and I don't know if I remember at the Massachusetts Daily Collegian, shout out to them. Our most read story every month was the 20 years since Maura Murray story. That was I think it was written my sophomore year, and every year after every month, it was the most read story we had.
Keeps on leading the charge.
And maybe if we do turn into a true crime podcast for 2 months, maybe people would be into it.
Maybe we'll see. I guarantee.
Or maybe not.
Comments if we're talk about Fraser Mitten.
Get to the point, and we're going to. Bruins are heading out west right now. They did just call up Fabian Lysell, and this is something that we've kind of wondered all year. When's this going to happen? It did a little bit. I think it was December or late December. They brought him up for a game. His family was in town, and they sent him. That was the game I watched from '99 in Saugus. I'll never forget that game. Never forget that game. And Lysell went right back to Providence and has not been back since. Now he is back. Do you foresee this being a long stay? What are you looking at with this call up?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, right? I think we talked about this with Bruins Beat, where over these final 13 games, you've got a stretch that the Bruins haven't had in a while, where it's kind of consequence free, right? You have leeway. You're not, you're technically still in it, but the playoffs aren't happening this year, so you have the ability to give guys who aren't in the lineup either elevated minutes, and you've seen that with guys that are already on the roster, right? Like Hushandinov giving Casey Middlestad power play reps. So you have this kind of blank slate the rest of the year where it can kind of be consequence free, where you can roll with the punches, go through the growing pains. But if a guy like Lysell can show some of the speed and the skill that has always been his calling card, that's a positive. You're trying to find anything to glean from a player like that you can look at and be like, all right, this guy, maybe he is in the mix next year. Maybe if we put him with, in a top 6 role, maybe he has chemistry with a guy like Casey Middlestad, or you've seen the returns so far with Elias Lindholm with 2 guys with a lot of speed on the wing, and Lauko and Hushandinov. Maybe Lysell can fit in the mix there. Maybe there's something, that Swedish connection. Maybe that pops off, right? And so, again, is it a guarantee? No, of course not. And we've seen, we've talked about Lysell for years now, waiting for him to get his shot. And there's been, clearly the Bruins have hesitancy about doing that. They either want him to be a more finished product. The numbers this year in Providence haven't been all that encouraging. You wonder if at this point he's overcooked. He's marinated enough down in Providence. So there is also that part of it, of what more does he have to show down there. And I'm sure that sets in for the player himself. I do like that Lysell's usually actually pretty candid and blunt, where he was like, yeah, I was pretty disappointed. Got sent down right after that one game. And Steve Conroy, the Herald, asked him, like, were you told anything of why you were sent down? He's like, no. So, like, clearly the guy wants a shot. And you hope that, again, over this stretch here, he's going to get extended minutes. Like, I don't want him to be a guy that's playing 11 minutes on the third line and makes a defensive mistake and all of a sudden he's stapled to the bench. Like, again, you hope the Bruins aren't in the spot next season where these games mean nothing, right? So, like, now is the time to see what you have in this player. And if he doesn't make an impact and he's playing at the perimeter and he's, getting knocked off the puck and he's not engaged, well, then finally, right? You give him 10 games, 14 minutes a night, and he's not running with the opportunity, much as was the case in training camp where didn't really show out in that situation. If it continues now, well, then you know that he's not a guy you can look at for next year and be like, all right, we're not signing Joe Schmo for the third line as a free agent. We're not signing Joel Armia, who I don't think the Bruins would want anyway because he hurt Charlie McAvoy, but a guy like that, right? You're not giving up, $4 million, $5 million for a player like that because you think Lysell is going to, make another push. If he doesn't show out right now, he's not in the equation moving forward. So there's no guarantee, right? But it's a good problem to have for the Bruins, and probably one that Bruins fans will probably be like, why the hell wasn't he up sooner? If he ends the year, if he plays 10 games and gets 5-6 points, well, then maybe he's a guy that is in the mix next year. And you know who to play him with. Maybe he's not a third line guy. Maybe he's, again, the same way as Middlestat maybe isn't a set in stone top 6 player, but you put him in the right spot to play to his strengths. Maybe it works out that way. And if you are the Bruins and you have this stretch here, might as well give the guy a shot.
This is essentially a September call-up. You see this in baseball all the time. A team's not doing so hot. September, they bring up all the young guys. They see what they can get out of them. That's kind of this. And I'm with you. And you and I have talked about this ad nauseum this year of see what you've got out of your young guys who've been down there a long time. We'll get to this in a bit of like, should more young guys come up? And I think it's different for every guy. Like, a Patra or a Fraser Minton. Providence is very good this year, and they are pushing for a Calder Cup. We'll get to that in a bit. I think that should be their number one priority. But for a guy like Lysell, who you've had down there for a long time, your team at the NHL level looks a lot different now. Yeah, they're not as talented, but they are faster. Maybe that does acclimate to Lysell's game. Maybe it doesn't. And I'm with you. Then you know. You have your answer. And I think some people might say, well, don't bring him up yet. If he's really bad at the NHL level, it's going to kill his trade value. His trade value is gone anyway. It's gone. He does not have any value or much of it. And he's certainly not worth, a first round pick, what a first round pick would typically be worth. So I say, see what you got. See what you got. What is the harm in doing so? Now, again, he's out there. They're heading out west right now. They play Vegas Thursday. So there is that. And again, where do you put him in the lineup? Do you put him where Lettieri's been playing? Do you put him on the third line? Like, you can mix and match there. I'm all for it. Trying him out in different places and seeing if you get anything. And as you said, if he's pointless in 10 games or isn't, you're not noticing him, then there you go. There's your answer. But you need to know it first. Something that we always know, Connor, our friends at Prizepicks. Friends at Prizepicks. Prizepicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. Prizepicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On Prizepicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite hockey players with favorites from baseball, basketball, you got esports as well, and much more. Prizepicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. Your top teams obviously are doing their thing. Matthews, McDavid, McKinnon, Bruins wise, obviously not pushing for the playoffs, at least probably not going to be. Pastrnak continues to cook. Morgan Geekie continues to score and produce. So yeah, no, I don't think you can go wrong with either of those guys. We've been saying it for weeks. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game over at Prizepicks. So in terms of other younger players, I think there's one younger player that you and I are probably in lockstep on of wanting to bring up, and that would be Georgi Merkulov. I think he's earned the right to come up. But as I mentioned right before the Prizepicks thing, they are fighting for a Calder Cup, and they are good. And we saw this with Washington, where like it benefits those guys, your younger players, to go through a playoff grind. And it maybe it's not the same as the NHL, but it's still a playoff push. It's still a big deal to win a Calder Cup, all that stuff. And for someone like Fraser Minten, for someone like Matt Patra, I am actually for them staying in Providence, at least for right now, especially Minten. Where are you at with that stuff?
Yeah, I almost think and I think you can make a compelling case either way, right? Like if there are no consequences up here and you want to give these guys 13, 14 minutes and get their feet wet, I can see the logic behind that. But I agree with you, Evan, where I almost feel like there's two different tiers. And like there's the guys that are been here for a while that you need to figure out just what you have in them. Like,
yes,
you don't really know, even if like Potter and Minton got called up, regardless of what the results are, like these final 4 weeks of the season, I wouldn't put much stock into it unless they friggin' go, have 0 points or 15 points in 13 games, right?
They're so nasty, they lift you, like they keep you in the playoff push.
Yeah, that might change the approach as to what those guys are going into next year. But I think for Lysell and Merkulov, it comes down to just the clarity. Like, are these guys actually going to be in the mix next year or not? We know that Potter and Minton, I don't know if they're going to break camp, but they are part of that next wave, behind maybe the Lysells and Merkulovs, right? You forget that both Potter and Minton are both 20 years old. Like, they've got more room to grow. They've both played, multiple games, the NHL, both Potter and Minton. So, and I think you look at like Lysell and Merkulov, what more do they have to show in Providence, right? Like, they're honestly overbaked at this point in terms of what you have in them and what you're trying to figure out what they can do at the AHL level. Like, Merkulov's been a point per game guy for a while. Lysell was that last year. Again, been disappointing this current season, but is also the frustration and all that stuff. And I know people say like, all right, like you got to have the right mindset. You got a day at a time. Like, you roll with the punches, but human nature. Like, if you're putting up numbers, and he had a impactful game, that one game in the NHL where he used his speed to win a puck battle, led to a goal 20 seconds later. Like, and then you get sent down. Like, it's frustrating. It stinks for a guy like that who probably feels as though he's ready. So again, the onus now for Lysell is to prove that he deserves a spot up here. And I think for Merkulov, it's the same thing. Like, it hasn't been a great start for him so far. He's played 10 games, 1 assist, 0 goals. Like, you need to show something. And if they do get that opportunity over this last month of the year, great. Maybe they are guys you can at least, put in the peripheral for stepping into roles next year. If not, then you move on. And I feel like, especially with like right now in Providence, where both Poitras and Minton are getting top 6 minutes, not only because Lysell and Merkulov could be out of the mix, right? Like, Lysell's up here now. Merkulov, you feel like could be a guy that should get some reps. So they might not be in the equation. You got Lettieri and Patrick Brown who are getting top 6 minutes. They're not there. So beyond the fact that Providence has a winning team right now and you're going to get valuable reps, you're also getting 16, 17, 18 minutes a night for these guys like Minton and Poitras. So I feel like for them, let them stay down there for right now. This entire year up at the NHL level has been a shit show anyway. Like, let them go on a deep run there, feel good about their games, have a clean slate, and then, get here in the late summer, get ready to roll and see if they can kind of attack a new year and get a clean slate like a lot of guys. And I think that would be beneficial. And as I said earlier, you can make the case that, you should just give all these guys reps now, but I feel like maybe being a bit more cautious with those players, Minton and Poitras, is smart, because even like Poitras, right? Like, he's a guy that this whole year has kind of been stuck in neutral, right? Coming off a shoulder injury, we probably really wasn't ready for NHL physicality in the competition last year. Struggled to find his game. He's been productive in Providence. Like a lot of these guys, like Charlie McAvoy and Lindholm with their injuries, like how we say Jeremy Swayman needs an offseason to recover. Elias Lindholm needs a summer to recover. For Patra, go down to Providence, produce, and then take a little bit of a breather, and then attack the new year where there could be an opportunity for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because I think if they had not gotten Casey Middlestat at the deadline, I think I would have said, bring Merkulov up and play him in the second line center role, or a third line center role, and like just leave him there and just see what you got the rest of the year. If you're trading Coyle and Marchand and like you have spots in your top six, but you did get Middlestat back. So I think for him, like for Merkulov, and again, this is asking a lot because, contrary to popular belief, they are still trying to win games. You can't just not, especially as professional athletes. I want to see him in a spot for 5 to 10 games, preferably down the middle, because that's what he's used to. That's what he has done in Providence. And in a middle six spot. And I think that's what suits him the best. That's what caters to his play style. I'd love to see him on the power play a little bit. But he's not up yet. He's still down in Providence. And to me, he's someone who has done everything, at least production-wise at the AHL level, to warrant a long NHL look of, hey, let's see what we've got in this guy. And I am curious, is he an RFA at the end of this year?
I forget. I'd have to look at it. I wish I still miss Cap Friendly where I would do it. I feel like all
Capital's got Cap Friendly, and they're going to be number one seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, and what do you know? So maybe that is the key.
But I do wonder if another team looks at him as like a distressed asset, where it's like, man, like if we get a hold of him and play him more minutes. But he's someone, as we said, to come up. But other, Minton, Patra. Let those guys cook in Providence and go for a Calder Cup trophy, because you know what? Winning matters. Winning matters. That level, especially. Before we get into a big topic that you and I are going to talk a lot about today and many days going forward, our friends at Gametime. Our friends over at Gametime, you know them well. They have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Think about the Bruins right now. The Bruins obviously are not doing so hot, so you know what that means? Cheaper ticket prices. That's how it works. And you got the Red Sox coming up. Beautiful spring day, crack of the bat, a Fenway Frank, ice cold beverage. So Gametime helps you create great memories with your friends and family. And what more could you ask for, especially this time of year where it's really nice? They also have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You also get panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And there's Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Connor, what time is it?
A Gametime.
A Gametime is correct. Let's talk Mitch Marner. Let's talk Mitch Marner, Connor. I think we're going to be doing this a lot in the coming weeks, months, in the lead up to free agency. Now, you and I are vehemently, if this was like political, right? If there were like sides, like, one side believes this, one side believes that, we would firmly be on the side of free agency is not where you want to build your team.
No.
And that was proven last summer. Don't want to build your team in free agency. But every now and again, every couple years, maybe more, because more guys are re-signing with their teams and then signing young. But every now and again, you'll get a big player, franchise guy who you can look at and say, that's going to be worth the money. The last one was probably Johnny Gaudreau, if I'm not mistaken. Mitch Marner's coming up. Mitch Marner is going to be a UFA. It does not look like he's going to be returning to Toronto. Where are you at? Should the Bruins go after Mitch Marner?
Yes. Yep. All right. Bye, Evan. No.
And that's it. What would you look forward to from you, Connor?
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I understand that Bruins fans might have some hesitancy where, again, Mitch Marner has some warts in his game, right? Where not the most physical guy, can get knocked off the puck. There's been a few playoff runs where he hasn't necessarily been all that sharp. I will say there's also, especially some of the first playoff matchups between the Bruins and Maple Leafs in that Matthews, Marner, Nylander era. He was, I think, their best forward. So he has shown in the past that he can produce. And yeah, I mean,
he's like Carl Corzini's favorite forward in the NHL.
Yeah,
like that is his guy.
Whatever you want to say about his profile and how he fits, and you look at how the Bruins have augmented and changed their approach, especially this at the deadline of changing, is Casey Middlestad or some of these guys traditional Bruins? No, but they can make plays. And if you are the Bruins, and I think your top priority has to be just adding game-changing offensive talent, yeah, Mitch Marner is a guy that I think fits in with what could be their plan moving forward, which if the Bruins are trying to stay competitive and max out the Pasternak, McAvoy prime window while staying competitive, without, necessarily giving up future assets, right? I think it all comes down to adding talent on the wing. Like there's not no need, but if the center talent isn't there for this team and, you either have to trade a lot of assets to try to get a guy or overpay in free agency, and there's not a game-changing franchise center out there. Well, I think what you have to do is, not to keep on echoing what I said, you got to be Vegas before you got Eichel. It's all about adding talent where talent is there, which is on the wing. And then you wait for the center situation to figure itself out, whether it's the guy you draft, whether it's O'Brien or McQueen or Denoyer or Misa, Hagens, if you get that high. But if you draft a guy like that, you let him develop at his own timeline, or you wait in a few years when a center who's in his late 20s is disgruntled and wants to go somewhere, and you've got the draft capital to then pony up to get them. Or if it's Eichel and whatever it is. Like, I don't think this offseason, if the center isn't available, you don't go searching for something that's not there, or you don't overspend for a guy that's, you don't overspend for Sam Bennett and give him 7-7, right? When I don't think he's worth that money. Right.
And I agree. And there are Bruins fans who would disagree, who would say, no, we need a guy like that. And it's like, I don't know how he's aging. I don't know. Like, that's
and he's never had a 50-point season. Like,
he's just so physical.
Would you rather sign a guy like that? Or would you rather, again, Mitch Marner is not making 7-7. We know that. No. But, for all of his flaws, and again, I say that as if he's like this, one trick pony. The guy is going to, for, what is he, 28? Just turned 28. He's going to give you 85 to 90 to 100 points every single year in the prime of his career. And I think you look at what he provides, right? If you're just trying to build out your roster and you have one line that is anchored by David Pasternak, who can spin gold with Geeky and Zaka, and you have Mitch Marner, who can drive play with a lot of different guys, and doesn't mean you have to then go out and sign Ehlers or someone else like that. You can find other guys that maybe can just finish pucks around the net, and you have a guy like Marner who can drive play himself. Again, like it's this team will still have holes regardless of what they do with all this money and everything like that this offseason. But if you're just trying to stay competitive, a guy like Marner is a game-changing talent, and a guy that, I think even it was Scott McLaughlin of EI mentioned this of talking about like this past offseason, what the Bruins really needed was just a game-changing offensive player. Would you have rather have spent the money on Elias Lindholm and Zadorov, two guys that ideally fit needs, and I think a lot of Bruins fans were happy with last year of what they were supposed to do, right? A defensive two-way top six center and a physical bruising defenseman. Bruins could use that. Or would you rather have signed Jake Gensel and have an 85-point guy the next 6, 7, 8 years?
I think the answer's clear on that now.
Yeah. And again, like, would you rather fill out your roster with 2 or 3 guys, like a Yoel Armia and a Brock Besser and someone else, like a right shot D that's, Pionk or someone like that? Would you rather Mitch Marner, who's going to make 12, 13 million a year, but is going to give you 95 points?
So here's where I agree with you. I agree with you on Marner. I think that is a free agent who does not pop up often, and I think he's safe to project as being worth that amount of money that he's getting. What's he going to get? Like 12 million per year?
I mean, with the market, who knows? Like, he'll be 13, 14. It also depends on what he does in the playoffs. What if he goes off?
That's the other thing, right? Like he goes off, in
which
the
he has
playoffs,
the skill to do. Like
he does.
He is a skilled player.
He does. And so again, like we've talked about this for a couple of years now, where it's like it's hard to get a number one center and have them come in immediately. And we thought they had that with Lindholm, and it obviously has not been the case. But as you were talking, I was writing out lines. It's March 19th, and we're already doing lines for next season. I think Geeky, Zacha, Pastrnak work together. And I think you go into next season with that as one of your top 6 lines. That's fine. Pastrnak drives that line on the right. That's your elite game-breaking player.
It's a luxury.
Zacha, it's a luxury. Zacha down the middle has worked with him, and you hope Geeky can put up 20 goals and repeat what he did this season. I think playing with Pastrnak allows him to do that. Then you get into the real question, right? Let's say you go out and get Marner. So Marner is going to drive a line. He is going to be the skilled guy. He's going to be the David Pastrnak of likely the second line. You could do Middlestat on the left wing and Elias Lindholm down the middle. Or I think you and I talked about this after we stopped recording Bruins Beat yesterday. I don't remember if it was on it or off it. So forgive me if we did this on air already, but I don't think we did. You mentioned to me the great idea of Nikolai Ehlers is also available. And I remember talking to Court Lalonde last week. He loves Ehlers, and Ehlers is a consistently productive left winger. And you need a left wing here. you need a guy on the left. He could provide that. So you could do Ehlers, Middlestat down the middle, and Marner. Now that would be like the most skilled offensive leaning,
only. Yeah,
ever. But it is you need that. You don't have that right now. And then you could go Elias Lindholm on the third line, which I know is going to piss a lot of people off.
But
you
could
do
down
that.
Line. And again, if it's that, and again, now that we're just going through lines, if it's Hushendinov and Minton, and it's 2 guys with high motors that can chip in and seem to play well with a guy like Lindholm, like again, it's I don't know if Lindholm's just a sunk cost at that point, but still, if he's your 3C giving you 40 points or something, you'll take it, I guess, not for that price point, but the rest of your lineup kind of falls in place after that, right? Again,
100%.
And if you make moves like that where it's in free agency and you get 2 guys and a guy in Marner who's not going to drop off anytime soon, I would be legitimately shocked he goes to any team, unless he goes to chases the bag with like Chicago, and who knows what the hell happens there, right? And again, like there's no guarantee that he either wants to come here or the Bruins want to get into a bidding war with teams like Chicago or Carolina or someone like that. Again, it remains to be seen who wants to go to Carolina. But no, it does just put things into place, right? It settles things out a little bit. And when you have 2 guys like Pastrnak and Marner driving play in their own lines, is the supporting cast around them. It's not, you don't have 2, it's not Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak, right? But no. Geeky and Zacha have shown what they can do. And if you're able to get guys like that, and that's your top 6, you spend that money and you lock in while also having all your draft picks that you can either use and build up your system again, or when another guy comes calling, when Brady Tkachuk wants out in 2 years or something like that, you have either the opportunity to do it or you keep on drafting. And if you have those guys, if you have those guys on your team next year, like the Ehlers and Marner, and those are your only 2 additions, you fill out your bottom 6, that first line, you know what you're getting out of that group. You need, again, it's not saying that all of a sudden you go and the cup's back on or anything, but you're in a good spot where you're competitive. You've got guys that are all around the same age. Ehlers is 29, Marner's 28. And if you get a top 10 pick and you're already competitive at the NHL level and you can keep on looking and seeing what Denoyer is doing or O'Brien or someone like that, and they put up numbers and you feel like they can make a push in a year or 2, then you're in a pretty good spot where you've already got one of the younger teams in the league that's already back to being competitive. So I understand that people might recoil at Marner and what his profile is, but you need talent. You need scorers. And if the money's there, which it is, at the very least, you should be in the mix because that's a guy that changes your complexion of your roster.
Yeah, Bruins cap space has them at $27.13 million in cap space next offseason. Now, again, you got to sign other guys. Kiki's one of those guys. Hustendinov, Lauko, low rise in RFA. Like, you've got guys that you got to pay, but you should have enough definitely for Marner and potentially even for an Ehlers, or you go for another scoring wing. I'm with you. I think the path back to contention is build the wings and develop centers. draft centers, hope that a Zellers or a Minton or the guy you draft this year or the guys that you draft this year or a Letourneau pan out into being a number 1 and number 2 center down the road. I mean, again, Washington right now, and I'm not saying you got to model every single thing that Washington has done. I don't think it, if Washington fell off next year, wouldn't be entirely shocking. But again, like Pierre-Luc Dubois is their number 1 center. Dylan Strome right after him. Like, these are not bona fide number 1 guys. These are honestly reclamation projects, and especially Dubois.
Yeah.
And so
no
again,
one wanted him last year.
Nobody wanted him. So again, I think that the move is, Zaka's one of those types of guys, and he's proven his worth here, obviously. Middlestat seems to be one of those guys. Lindholm. So to me, that's your path. Keeping one of those guys down the middle and put the talent on the wings. In terms of where Marner's wanting to go, I think you and I are probably going to talk a lot about that this offseason. He's definitely probably going to leave Toronto, I would imagine. And so you add into that, like, do you want to go to a smaller market? Do you want to go to a market that doesn't care as much as Toronto does? Or do you want to continue to compete? Do you want to continue to be in a top market? And that's where the Bruins could come in and make a compelling case to get him. But I don't think that this is the last time you and I talk about Mitch Marner.
No.
I don't think it will be. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every step of the way this Bruins season and going into the offseason. We have features, columns, breakdowns, roster projections, all that good stuff. So you can read all of my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can over at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.